Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabansi. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic, debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we have another Friday special. This is actually going to be our second show, but before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, about a week or so ago, we actually produced a Friday special, a longer show, and a good amount of people saw it, and we got a lot of positive feedback. So we said, hey, why not? Why not try to do it? Let's just do a second installment and let's see how people react to it. So here we are again for episode number 2. Now today, I have a lot of things that I want to touch on. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the new CBA because we want to do kind of like a weekly roundup, and I want to say some things that I didn't quite say in those other shows. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about the new CBA, especially given what had just happened last night with the Kyrie Irving news and the James Harden news. We're going to be talking a little bit about that. We're also going to be talking about Kyrie Irving, new meeting with the the Phoenix Suns, which I just think is an absolutely atrocious piece of news in terms of the competitive balance for the NBA. And we're going to be talking a little bit about Kawhi Leonard and why the Clippers are actually frustrated with Kawhi Leonard and their current state of affairs. So we're going to be talking about all of that. But let's start off with the first topic, right? I want to talk a little bit about the CBA. Now, going into this new collective bargaining agreement, the NBA fans have been complaining about the current state of affairs with the NBA. They don't like the fact that a lot of these guys do not respect the game anymore. They're not playing games. There's rampant load management taking place all over the place where guys is just simply not putting an emphasis on regular season games anymore, and even including teams, right? We saw one of the most lackluster, probably the worst All-Star game we have ever seen, excuse me, with the last All-Star game, where these guys just seemed like they were totally disinterested. And as a matter of fact, I recently heard some news where they asked Ja Morant, or they were talking to someone that knows Ja Morant, and they were asking, I think it was his teammate, Jaren Jackson Jr., and essentially what he said was Ja Morant has no interest in being in the slam dunk contest, which is just a shame. Really, but it really speaks to kind of the attitude that these players have towards the NBA. They believe now it's a right and instead of a privilege, right? They view it as their right to be in the NBA, where in the past you had so many great players compete in the slam dunk contest. You're talking about Vince Carter, you're talking about Kobe Bryant, you're talking about Tracy McGrady, you're talking about Michael Jordan, you're talking about Dominique Wilkins, you're talking about Spud Webb. All of these guys participated in that, but now, excuse me, you see so many star players just saying that they're not interested. Now, let's get into this new CBA. There are a few areas that I want to highlight. I want to focus on kind of the big pieces of news. Now, one of them is this. The new CBA states that in order for these players, these top-tier players, to qualify to be on the All-NBA team, for example, to win the regular season MVP, to win Defensive Player of the Year, they are now required to play at least 65 games. So basically, they're saying that you should play about 75% of the season for you to qualify. And in the past, you had guys playing in the 50s or high 50s, and they were still making these All-NBA selections, and I think that's a good thing. As a matter of fact, when we produced the show about this yesterday, and some of the people were actually reacting to the video where we did that solely focus on the new CBA, a lot of people seem to be very pleased with this new development. Some people, however, said 65 games is not enough. It should be at least 72, right? So it puts an emphasis on these guys playing more games. And if these guys don't make these all NBA teams and all of these other stuff, I don't know if some of you guys are aware, but the Supermax contract has some key stipulations in it. One of them, you have to be playing for your particular team for a number of years. Another one is stipulated for you to qualify to trigger the Supermax contracts. It says that you need to at least win the regular season MVP, win a Defensive Player of the Year, or make an All-NBA team. And guys were making those lists without really putting an emphasis on playing games. So now, if you're not making these lists because you're not playing enough games, it could actually have a direct impact on your earning potential in the future. So the owners are kind of sticking it to them there. I think that what they're doing is they're they're incentivizing them to play more games and therefore kind of finding a way to reduce the load management. Do I think load management is still going to be a part of the game? I absolutely think so, especially when you have NBA players that are now retired advocating for it. Ironically, however, you do have players that are currently playing in the NBA, like Paul George, for example, who's part of one of the load management centers in the NBA with the Los Angeles Clippers. He actually started talking about on his podcast some of the drawbacks he believes that load management has on a player's body. So there's that. Another thing that they spoke about in the new CBA is that the NBA All-Star team will now be positionless. Now, why they're doing this, I don't really have an understanding as to why they're doing this, but this is what they're doing. So yesterday, while doing some research, we actually came across an ESPN article that basically shed some more light on some of the things that we need to pay attention to in terms of the cap for this new CBA. So what we want to do is want to play a little bit of an article audio that we produced about this particular thing, where we go over some of the things that this particular report had to say. So let's take a listen to what this report entails. Take a listen to that. NBA salary cap projections show greater increases, sources say. The NBA informed teams Wednesday that it has updated the salary cap projections for the 2023-2024 season, sources confirmed to ESPN. In a memo sent to teams, the league said the salary cap is projected to be $136 million and the luxury tax is projected to be $165 million, higher by $2 million and $3 million respectively. That initial projection sent in September before the season began. The league stressed that both numbers are still projections and that the final figures won't be determined until the NBA's annual financial audit is completed later this month before the new league year begins on June 30th. Under the new collective bargaining agreement with the National Basketball Association, which goes into effect starting next season, the salary cap can rise a maximum of 10% per season, with the 2022-2023 salary cap being set at $125 million. The maximum cap and the total tax could be for the 2023-2024 campaign will be $136 and $165 respectively. So you heard what the report had to say. Now, let's talk a little bit about this new cap, right? Let's talk a little bit about this new cap. The new current salary cap for the NBA is the following. The cap will now be set for the 2023-2024 season. It will be set at $126 million. And the cap will go up 10% each year. They're doing that obviously to make more money, right? So it goes up by 10% every year. Then you have what you call the tax apron. The tax apron, which I view as a penalty. Now, the luxury tax will be set at $165. So if you cross that line, you're going to be paying luxury tax depending on how you're behaving. Now, if you exceed that number, the first apron will kick in, which will be a $7 million. And if you exceed the next apron, which will be a $17 million, your cap could possibly go all the way up to $182 million. Based on my understanding of this information, I am viewing the tax apron as a tax, not a credit. I think it's something that's going to penalize teams for spending so much money. So I think that's one of the things that they're doing. The reason, obviously, they're doing this is to discourage teams from basically spending their way to championships, right? I think that's the reason they're doing that. So as we're producing this show, some people then said, as you're here talking about the new CBA, did you just hear what the Phoenix Suns and these guys are going to be doing? I guess the CBA is not going to work. No, the cap is going to work, but it seems like these teams are willing to go deep into the luxury tax. As you guys know, the Phoenix Suns are one of these teams. One of the things that this new CBA also stipulates is that you can't bring in less money than you can't bring in less money. You can't bring in more money than you sent out. That's one thing. And you now cannot trade more than three draft picks, first round draft picks, if you exceed the cap and you go into the apron and all of that. You cannot do that anymore. You cannot sign any free agents in the buyout market. You can't do that anymore once you enter into the luxury tax. So it seems like the NBA is trying to do whatever it can to make the league more balanced, especially for teams that are in markets where it's hard to attract these big name players. I believe that's what they're trying to do. So it seems that they're trying to restore some type of competitive balance, but it looks like players like Kawhi Leonard and Kevin Durant and these guys have absolutely zero regard for that. If you look at the Clippers, for example, if you look at the Los Angeles Clippers payroll going into next season, they're currently, just listen to this. The Clippers paid last year, their total payroll was $171 million, way above the cap. Their projected, listen to this, their projected payroll for next season will be $181 million. Now, I don't know how this particular salary cap is going to work with this new CBA. I don't understand how all of that how all of that's going to work. And next year, they're going to be paying Kawhi Leonard $45.6 million and Paul George $45.6 million. So that's something we're going to talk about a little bit later. Obviously, we heard the news around the Suns. Well, the Suns right now are extremely, extremely top heavy. They had a lot of expiring contracts. So right now on their books, based on what I'm seeing here, you have Kevin Durant, who they're going to pay for this season $47.7 million. You have Devin Booker, who they're going to be paying $36 million. You have DeAndre Ayton, who we're going to get to a little bit later, the second segment of this show, who they're paying $32 million. And you have Cameron Payne, who they're paying $6.5 million. So their current cap or payroll next year is going to be $124 million, which is basically $2 million below the new cap. So that means that for sure they're going to exceed it and they're going to go into the luxury tax. So to me, man, it seems like the big teams out there, they're definitely going to keep spending. They're not going to be discouraged whatsoever. And it seems like these big boys are going to try to spend whatever they can to ensure that they win a championship, which I believe is going to continue to ruin the competitive balance in the NBA. But hey, these are my thoughts. So what I want to know from you guys is, what do you think about this new CBA? Do you think it's a step forward? Do you think that it's working? And if you think that they could have done other things to put forth an even stricter CBA, let me know what you think in the comment section below. So let's get to the second part of this here, right? Now, yesterday, we had finished producing all of our shows, right? We had finished. And then I saw something on my phone on Instagram. It might have been from Bleacher Report, SportsCenter, ESPN, one of these platforms. And I saw something that said Kyrie Irving is supposed to be taking a meeting with the Phoenix Suns. And I was like, Kyrie Irving is meeting with the Phoenix Suns? I was like, hold up. Didn't the Phoenix Suns just sign Bradley Beal to play with Devin Booker and to play with Kevin Durant? So how is it possible that Kyrie Irving is having a meeting with the Phoenix Suns? How is this even possible? Are you telling me that they're going to be having 4 All-Stars on their roster? 4 guys that can score 25 to 27 points per game on the same roster? You're talking about you're going to have 2 guys in the starting lineup who both had 50, 40, 90 seasons in Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant? You're talking about a Bradley Beal who recently led the league in scoring a few years ago? You're talking about a Devin Booker that scores 70 points in an NBA game? You telling me all of these guys are going to be on the same team? I was like, there's absolutely no way that this could be true. So what did I do? I actually found that it was true, and I want to just quickly go over some things that I read from a CBS report, CBS article here. So let me just read a little bit of this. Kyrie Irving will reportedly meet with the Phoenix Suns in free agency. What exactly is going on here? This is my question. It continues on. While Mark Stein reported on Thursday morning that Kyrie Irving is expected to resign with the Dallas Mavericks, the All-Star guard, according to Turner Sports' Chris Haynes, expected to meet with both the Mavericks and the Phoenix Suns in free agency. Teams are officially allowed to negotiate with free agents as of 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday. This doesn't make a ton of sense. The Suns are not only without cap space necessary to offer free agents anything more than a minimum contract, they are deep in the tax and ready to blow past the second apron, which will further restrict their ability to upgrade the roster in the next few seasons. They gave up most of their future picks in order to get Kevin Durant in February, and they gave up everything else in order to get Bradley Beal earlier this month. In theory, Irving could land in Phoenix through a sign and trade. In this scenario, however, Dallas would have to agree to send him there. Unless the Suns are going to trade Beal, Durant, or Devin Booker, all unlikely, they'd have to send the Mavericks a package built around DeAndre Ayton. Would the Mavericks be happy to turn Irving into, say, Ayton, Cameron? Is it even rational for a team that already has Booker, Durant, and Beal to go after another big name scorer? What is going on here? This is the question we all are asking. What in the bloody hell is going on here? What's going on here? Then after we heard that news, right after that, we're now hearing about James Harden and these boys talking about the Clippers have interest in James Harden. What the hell is going on in the NBA these days? No, seriously, let's talk about it. What exactly is going on in the NBA? What is happening to the competitive balance? What are we doing? Now, here's the irony in all of this. Kevin Durant just finished scolding Legend of Winning on a Twitter group call or whatever it was, by basically telling fans that they don't view the game the right way. That you don't need to be focusing on championships. We need to just judge players on who's good and who's not good. So if that's the case, and Kevin Durant actually meant what he said, why in the Lord's name are they trying to put together the Justice League? Because essentially that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to build a Justice League. And the irony in all of it is this. KD gets annoyed when people try to discredit his 2 championships with the Golden State Warriors, because they're basically saying, bro, you created a super duper super team. And KD's like, nah, but that still shouldn't matter. I was still the man. Absolutely, Kevin Durant was the man. Absolutely, he was the best player on those championship teams. Absolutely, he was the finals MVP. No one is taking that away from him. But those rings don't carry the same weight like Nikola Jokic's ring this last season. It doesn't carry the same weight as Stephen Curry's ring. It doesn't carry the same weight as LeBron's ring in 2016. It doesn't carry the same weight as Kawhi's ring with the Raptors in 2019. It does not carry the same weight of Dirk Nowitzki's ring in 2011. It doesn't do that. So people, or Giannis Antetokounmpo's ring. So people are going to hold those players at a higher regard. So for KD to run around and start acting like as if people can't have an opinion about the game, talking crazy to people online, I don't know. Have y'all ever heard about KD running around Rikers Island or something like that? So why is KD talking so greasy to people? Is it because he's 7 foot tall and he makes all that money? He thinks that everybody he's talking to is soft? Like, yo, cut it out. You're not like some G. Like, cut it out with all of this spicy talk. You're talking to people, talking down to people. People shouldn't have it. NBA fans shouldn't have the right to comment on a game that they patronize, that lines your pockets. I don't understand it. How do you think you're making your millions? You think you got pigeons sitting in these arenas watching you? Or is it that you have alligators coming to the game? These are NBA fans that love the game, that spend all that money to buy tickets, to buy jerseys, to sit down and watch the game, which allows you to earn tens of millions of dollars every year. And then you're going to tell them to go sit down in a corner. They shouldn't have an opinion. That's the first part. The second part I don't understand about this is this. Why in the hell would you try to put together Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving after we just witnessed the implosion of the Brooklyn Nets? I don't understand. Somebody explain it to me. Why would you try to pair these two fellows together? Now yesterday when the news initially broke, I actually said that maybe this is just posturing. Maybe they're just doing this. Maybe Katie and these guys sat down together like, listen, we're going to have a meeting. We're going to say we're going to have a meeting, but we're not really going to have a meeting. We're going to go to Starbucks or something like that. We're going to go to a restaurant, whatever. And then it's going to be able to raise your leverage, because maybe when the Dallas Mavericks see this, They're going to be like, oh, okay, maybe somebody wants him. Okay, let's give him the money that he wants. Probably. We threw that out there during the live. And then actually later on, I started hearing Cruz Broussard and some other people throwing out that exact notion. But then Nick Wright said, but wait a minute. If you and I understand this, you mean to tell me that the Dallas Mavericks can't see through this? So to me, man, listen, I just think that's just a disgusting piece of news, to be quite honest with you. It's a disgusting piece of news. And now all of a sudden we're hearing that Kawhi Leonard and these guys in the Clippers want to go after James. Yo, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, what are we doing right now? What are we doing? What are we doing? What type of NBA is like? What are we doing? Where are we going to right now with all of this? This current brand of basketball is starting to become disgusting. If I'm being honest with you, nobody wants to compete. Everybody wants a super team. It's like the instant gratification era of the NBA. No one really wants to go through the process. If it didn't happen now or it didn't happen next year or in the next 2 years, blow it up. If you guys sit down and think properly, how long have the Denver Nuggets been together? How long has Nikola Jokic been with that team? He's been with that team for at least 4 years. And they just got it done just now. Sometimes you got to go through the process. Sometimes you got to go through the process. But these guys, man, I don't understand, man. I really don't understand. I'm not feeling any of this. I think that if they pull off this trade and it doesn't work, first of all, even if it works, I believe KD should get criticized the same way LeBron will get criticized, the same way any other player will get criticized. All right? Because really it's KD and LeBron. It's the two of these dudes. If we're being honest, it's the two of these dudes. LeBron started the player empowerment. He started the most recent era of super teams. Was he the one that invented super teams? Hell no. But the reason when LeBron did it, and a lot of people were shouting back then and NBA fans were pissed off with LeBron, the reason they were pissed off with LeBron is you had a player who some considered to be a top 3 player in the NBA in LeBron. You had Dwayne Wade, who had just finished leading the league in scoring the year before LeBron joined them in Miami. You had Dwayne Wade, who had already won a Finals MVP with Shaq back in 2005, if I'm not mistaken. Then you had Chris Bosh, who was like a 20-10 guy with the Toronto Raptors, and it was leading those boys to the playoffs. You then put that team together. Then you get Ray Allen. Then you get Shane Battier. Then you have Udonis Haslem. Then you have Mario Chalmers. So when LeBron and them came out and said, not 1, not 2, not 3, what you think LeBron was saying that for? Why have you never heard LeBron ever say that since? Because he knew that they built a super team. KD just saw that and took it to the next level with the Golden State Warriors. Because the Golden State Warriors already had Stephen Curry, who was already a unanimous MVP. You had Klay Thompson, who was one of the best two-way guards in the NBA and arguably the second best shooter in the NBA. You had Draymond Green, who was a defensive player of the year caliber player, who actually had 40 points in that game 7 that they lost to the Cavs. And then you now airdrop Kevin Durant, who was already a 50, 40, 90 guy, a regular season MVP, a guy who had led the league in scoring 4 times. It was egregious. So it was these two dudes. Name me the other super team that existed in that time span that was winning. Who was it? Who? Was it Kawhi with the Raptors? Cut it out. Who was it? Who was the other team? Let me know. Was it Giannis? Like, let's cut it out. Is these two dudes that have brought us to this current position that we're in. So I'm not feeling none of this. I think it's disgusting. Some people may love it. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it whatsoever. I'm not feeling it. So what I want to know from you guys, what do you think about this current news of Kyrie Irving? Do you think it's a good move? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. And we catch you, and then we'll continue on with the show. See you on the next segment. So let's continue on with the next segment here. Now let's talk a little bit about Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers and the current state of affairs with the Clippers. As you guys know, I'm a huge, Kawhi Leonard fan. I support him, although Kawhi Leonard has been disappointing us tremendously. I thought that run that he had with the Toronto Raptors back in 2019 was absolutely spectacular. A lot of people agreed. That year he led the playoffs in points, rebounds, and steals, which was absolutely incredible for basically a 3. He put up, and he had the third highest most points scored in the playoffs since LeBron James and Michael Jordan. I mean, it was that special, right? It was that special. So when he joined the Clippers and they ultimately signed Paul George, a lot of us were pretty high on them. And I picked the Clippers to win in 2020, and I was talking a lot of trash. I thought that the Clippers were going to perform well, but since signing them, it's just been one big disappointment. In the 4 years, we've only had an opportunity to see Kawhi Leonard and Paul George healthy in the playoffs one time. And that one time, we saw them blow a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets, who just won the championship, although it was a different team. That's the first thing. The next year, what happens, I believe, what is it? One of those years, Kawhi gets injured. He misses a year. Then Paul George is in and out of the lineup. And then this season, Paul George gets injured right before the season, right before the playoffs. He has some kind of freak injury. And then Kawhi Leonard gets injured in game one. And at the end of that, I walked away totally disappointed. And I was one of the people out there that said that I feel like the Clippers should consider blowing it up. That, I just can't go through another year of this, especially after all of the load management that the Clippers did, which was egregious, and it didn't work. It simply didn't work. What they thought would work did not work. I think the Clippers thought they were so smart that they were going to game the system, and it blew up in their faces. If you think of the games played last season, Kawhi Leonard played last year. Well, he only played two. He only played 2 games this playoffs. But Kawhi Leonard, if I'm not mistaken, played 52 games last year. 52 games. Paul George played 56 games. And then Paul George was not even available for the playoffs, and Kawhi Leonard only played 2 games. At the end of that, what are we supposed to be looking forward to for us to say, this is something for us to feel excited about? What exactly are we supposed to feel excited about with this team? The Clippers had everything or have everything in place to win a championship. It's just that these two guys, for whatever reason, cannot find a way to be healthy. And early this week, I was just kind of listening to some sports news, and I came across a podcast, an ESPN podcast called The Hoop Collective. And and these guys, Brian Windhorst, and these guys were talking about the Clippers because it was more centered on the Clippers. And during this particular show, Ohms kind of took us behind the scenes to kind of give us a feel of what the Clippers feel internally about their state of affairs with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. And according to his report, it seems like the Clippers is growing frustration within the organization towards Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. So what we want to do is want to play exactly what they had to say here, and then want to come back and continue on with the show. Take a listen to that.
So, you're with the Clippers a lot. I know you covered the Nuggets throughout the playoff run, but you know the Clippers as well as anybody. To me, the fascinating thing about the Clippers is that this summer, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they've got 1 year left on their contracts, and then they've got a player option. So it technically can be 2 years. But in the modern era, when an all-star level player has a year guaranteed left on his contract, we typically see some sort of extension discussion. Last year, for example, it was LeBron. LeBron had 1 year left on his contract, and he did a 1+1 extension. He added 1 year plus one. Even a player in his upper 30s did it. There's a bunch of players this year who will be in extension discussions. Maybe we can talk about with Bobby at some point. But this is a fascinating decision because Kawhi has had another surgery that the Clippers announced last week. They called it a cleanup procedure. I don't know what that means. It means that he's coming off that injury. I guess he suffered in the playoffs. Paul George was unable to finish last season due to an injury, and so I question, is this a simple decision? Do they extend them? Do they not extend them? Do they negotiate not a full extension? So, give me your feel on the state of the Clippers right now.
I don't think it's a simple decision. I think I have not spoken to Steve Ballmer, but I clearly remember his face at the end of that loss in Phoenix. And I think it was just of this frustration that why can't my stars be healthy? Why can't this team ever be healthy? And I think business wise, Steve Ballmer is probably wondering, I've spent all this money to make this a first-class franchise, and I cannot get my stars basically to play. I think Paul George had Jerry West on his pod recently, and I think Jerry West said it right to Paul George's face, something like, it's absolutely unbelievable that we have 2 stars of this caliber and you guys cannot stay healthy. So I think that's definitely an echo from the entire the frustration of the franchise. I've tried asking Lawrence Frank this numerous times, like at the end of his season press conference, he was talking about improving the team. I said, well, how do you improve availability? That's the biggest thing about this team. You just don't have your 2 stars. So I asked Lawrence this the other night at the end of the draft last week. I said, you've got your 2 superstars and extensions coming up. What is your feeling about extending these guys, especially the length of the extensions, because the cap is going to be so restrictive for them? Like, I think the Clippers are at a massive crossroads here, and Bobby can certainly talk more in depth about this, but this team has to figure out, we want to stay competitive and win a championship now. Our window is closing. We are entering a new building in Inglewood in, like, not next season, but the season after that. And Steve Ballmer wants a competitive team going into that to sell tickets and keep that team relevant. But you don't want to be stuck with 2 superstars on massive contracts that can't stay healthy, who are certainly getting up there in age as well. And you certainly want to have young prospects going into that season when you go into the new building as well, young talent. So I feel like, they are trying to straddle this line and walk this fine line of how do we stay competitive to win a championship now and build around Kawhi and build around Paul, but also still have a team that's going to be competitive for a long time to come. And now we got to deal with this new CBA. So I think that's a tough decision. If you look at Steve Ballmer, what he did with Ty Lue probably this summer, like Ty Lue was looking for a new deal, certainly more money. And I think Steve Ballmer's like, look, you're still under contract. Look, we love you. We want to keep you, but you're still under contract. I think they're starting to think about, like, what is the best way to spend money smartly with this team and still try to win a championship and still be competitive for years to come.
So you heard what they had to say. At the end of the playoffs, Steve Ballmer stood up and looked at himself and said, what am I doing here? What are we doing? Steve Ballmer and these guys are about to open up a new arena, I believe, in a year from now. Do you know how much Steve Ballmer and these guys invested in that arena? They invested $2 billion. $2 billion in that new arena. From an investment standpoint, is it paying dividend? Well, some people say, yeah, it's appreciated. No, it's not. It's not paying off because it's not working. It's not working based on the expectations that the owner himself has, which is Steve Ballmer, and he's the one also cutting the checks. And as a matter of fact, back in, I believe it was 2019, 2020, after he just bought the team, he actually sat down. Who did he sit down with? I think he sat down with Business Insider or Forbes, one of those two, to basically talk about the business aspect of owning an NBA team and why winning championships is so vital for the bottom line of an NBA team. So what we want to do is want to play from an old show that we produced a number of years ago. We're going to play exactly what Steve Ballmer had to say about the financials surrounding NBA teams when they win championships, and then we're going to come back and continue on with the show. Take a listen to that.
Well, we want to compete for NBA championships. It's great to win 50-plus games a year. It's better to compete for an NBA championship. So we decided that we needed to retool. We're not rebooting. We're not going to the bottom. We have a very competitive team, but we have a team in which we have more options on how to get better and go compete for a championship. The salary cap is very complicated. It's a little like the tax code. In a sense, it's simple. You have a rate. But at the end of the day, it isn't that simple because there are all these little perturbations. So I like what we've done with our team. It's given us more flexibility. I'd like to win a championship next year, but I'm sure, really enthused by the idea of getting where we need to be over the next 2 or 3 years. And obviously, it helps. It's to have that when you come out with a new arena. It helps Golden State make that arena. I mean, what you can charge for suites when you have a championship team I mean, I'm not saying I'm doing it for the business purpose. On the other hand, a championship floats all boats economically. Not winning a champion. We've done all this analysis on what's good for ticket sales. A number 1 draft pick. I don't actually want to get that unless we're lucky. I don't want to be that bad to have a high probability, but a number 1 draft pick helps. An NBA championship has a halo effect that lasts tens of years. Interesting. Not 1 or 2, and I think that's good for morale. It's what we want, but parenthetically, it's good for business too.
So you heard what he had to say. So listen, obviously it's not paying off. Given the fact that Steve Ballmer is a very, very passionate person about sports, a passionate person in general, but extremely passionate about basketball, I'm sure he must be frustrated. I'm sure he must be looking at his medical staff like, what do you people do? What am I paying all you guys this money? What are y'all doing? Y'all keep telling me, okay, let's do this, let's do that, but nothing can work. Nothing is working. Do we need to reevaluate the medical staff? Because what they've been doing is not working. Load management for these guys is not working. It's not working. You've even had Paul George complaining on his own show about why he feels load management is actually making their bodies weaker. And these guys are getting older. Now, I want to give you guys some numbers here because we got to talk about the numbers. Here's what the Clippers are going to be paying Kawhi Leonard and Paul George this year. They're going to be paying them $45.6 million a piece. Between the two of them, they're going to be paying them $90 million. Between the two of them. Next year, do you know what they're going to be paying these guys? Roughly $100 million. Kawhi Leonard is slated to earn $48.8 million, and Paul George is slated to earn $48.8 million. So from a business standpoint, let's remove the emotions out of this. Does it make sense to go ahead with these two guys who have an injury history, who've only been available or healthy with each other for one time? Now, is it their fault? No. Is it their fault? Are they injuring themselves? No. But it doesn't change the reality. So to me, I don't see why the Clippers would then double down on both of them. I don't understand. You're just running a risk. You're running a serious risk if you extend these two gentlemen. And given all the things that Kawhi Leonard wanted and all of the and how the Clippers capitulated to all of his demands, it's really not paying off. And Steve Ballmer is a human being. It is his money. And he must feel a type of way. Anybody that tells you, oh, well, he's an ultra billionaire, so he don't care, they're an idiot. They are an idiot. They probably are somebody that spends other people's money that they don't earn. They're probably some type of trust fund baby. If you earn your own money and somebody didn't give you money and you actually earn your own money and you understand the value of things, I don't care if you have $200 million in your bank account. If somebody wants to sell you a $100 burger, but it doesn't make sense for you to pay a $100 burger, you're not going to pay for that $100. You'd be like, I can pay $20, $25. Why am I paying $100? It's not a matter of, oh, do I have the money? It's a matter of, does it make sense to me? That's the key. So when you listen to, boy, yeah, those other people that ain't making no money. They just pocket watching somebody giving them money, so they have no clue of what money is. When you work for your own money, and you know the value of a dollar because you made it, and you understand what things cost, you're not going to overpay just for the simple fact that you have the money, unless you're an idiot. Unless you're an idiot. So to me, I definitely think Steve Ballmer is thinking about it, and I definitely think that they need to make a decision about one of these guys, but I wouldn't bring both of them back. But that's just my thoughts. So what I want to know from you guys is, number one, do you think this thing is working out for the Clippers in terms of from a financial standpoint? And number two, if you were Clippers management, what would you do? Would you keep both of them, trade both of them, or trade only one of them? Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comment section. And thank you guys for sticking around for this show here. Catch you guys next week. Peace.